Welcome back to Marvelous Videos. I'm Rylan, and this is The Medical Experiment That Went Wrong. Body Parts, 1991, explored. Our bodies are what give our lives shape and significance. We would never be able to put anything into action without our body parts. So what happens though when a person loses complete control of their body parts and they develop a mind of their own? Directed by Eric Red, this film follows the story of a man, played by Jeff Fahey, who finds himself experiencing gruesome visions after getting an arm transplant. The audience is exposed to multiple murders as the movie progresses, and the mystery behind these body parts continues to build until the final revelation. Body Parts is a terrific horror film that manages to keep the audience guessing until the very end, and it's a very promising watch. So let's explore this film together today on Marvelous Videos. Before we get into our explanation, however, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is just a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thanks. Now, let's begin. A medical miracle also becomes a murderous nightmare. Body Parts, 1991. The movie opens with a day in the life of Bill Cruikshank, who works as a criminal psychologist. He works with criminals on a regular basis and mainly counsels convicted killers. However, his daily routine gets abruptly interrupted when he gets into a road crash and is stable except for his arm. The doctor, Agatha Webb, consoles his wife and talks her into signing a waiver for an experimental transplant surgery for his arm. The movie was loosely based on a novel called Choice Cuts that was released in 1968. As Bill regains consciousness, he tries to adapt to the transplanted arm. After a few days of recovery, Bill gets back to his work as usual. This does not last long as he begins to get flashes of graphic murders in his head. He starts feeling as if he was the one doing the deeds, and he experiences difficulties with his new arm. One day, a patient informs him that the mark on his transplanted arm is a tattoo that is exclusively given to prisoners slated for the death row. Convinced that he was given a real human's arm, Bill confides in his wife, who doubts his theory. However, Bill is determined to find the truth, and he gets an acquaintance to run a check on his new fingerprints. As the results come in, Bill is astonished to learn that the arm belongs to Charlie Fletcher, a serial killer who was found guilty of murdering 20 people. Interestingly, the movie was actually released just a few months after a serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer, was caught and convicted of the gruesome murders of 17 men. Although it was just an unfortunate coincidence, this greatly impacted the movie's success, and all the advertisements and promotions had to be canceled. Bill returns to the hospital and confronts Dr. Webb, where he discovers that 2 additional patients were also given Charlie's body parts. He first visits Remo, who received the other arm. Bill discovers that Remo was a failed artist, who is now able to make a modest income through his paintings. He is painting with the transplanted arm. His patients depict the killings, and it appears that Remo also sees the same murderous visions that he does. Remo, on the other hand, is only concerned with his newly gained fortune and dismisses Bill. He then visits Mark Draper, who had received both the killer's legs. Mark doesn't care about the visions, and he tells Bill that he is grateful for just being able to move around once again and have new legs. Noticing that the other 2 don't have the same violent tendencies as himself, Bill gets even more determined to get rid of the arm. As time passes, Bill's visions keep getting worse, and his control over the arm keeps dwindling. Returning to Dr. Webb, he asks her to get rid of the arm. She refuses to do so, believes that Bill's problem is unimportant in comparison to the success of her experiment. He meets the other patients for a drink, where a drunk man approaches him. The man seems to know Bill from the news and asks to see his new arm. Bill loses his cool and attacks the man. Ending up in a bar fight, he fights numerous men on his own and almost fatally injures one of them. Bill does not hesitate to use the strength from the killer's arm and does not back away from the fight. It appears that the arm slowly takes over Bill's self-restraint and acts on its own accord. As the trio leaves the bar, things take a shocking turn, and Mark's legs unexpectedly stop working as he arrives home. Terrified, he calls Bill for help, but it seems that he is fighting someone off while staying on the phone. Bill rushes to Mark's apartment to check up on him, where he discovers him dead, with his legs cut off. Bill contacts the authorities and requests them to check up on Remo, as he could be the next victim. Meanwhile, Charlie locates Remo and shows up at his apartment. It appears that the serial killer found a different body and managed to transplant his head onto it. With a new body, he is now relocating all his limbs. He rips off his arm from Remo's body and pushes him out the window. Finally, he sets off to find Bill and get his right hand back. The exchange of body parts is reminiscent of The Mansion of the Doomed from 1976, wherein the lead character replaces his eyeballs with those of her victims. It so happens that Charlie locates Bill in the police car, and he makes his way through traffic in his own car. Charlie slams the brakes next to their car and manages to bind himself with Bill's hand using a handcuff. As the car starts to move, Charlie accelerates, and the detective frantically tries to match the pace in the fear that Bill's arm may be severed. As the car chase continues, they find themselves at the end of the road, with a divider that separates the two lanes. Bill manages to split the handcuff open just before they strike the divider. Bill takes control of the wheel and drives away behind Charlie while the detective tries to shoot at him. Although primarily a psychological thriller, this movie also dabbles in action scenes that include shootings and car chases, which only add to the thrill. However, Charlie manages to escape, and he returns to Dr. Webb with all his body parts. Bill gets out of the detective car with the gun and makes his way to the hospital. As he looks around, he discovers Charlie's limbs secured in a glass case. He notices that the body parts seem to have a mind of their own. They are all twitching around as if on their own. The movie's use of body parts moving on their own is also reminiscent of classics such as The Beast with Five Fingers from 1949 and The Hands of Orlac from 1924. The crazy experiments on humans is also inspired by the classic book Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Bill gets caught off as Dr. Webb enters and announces that she is ready to retrieve the arm, and Charlie strikes at him and he faints. Upon regaining consciousness, Bill finds himself strapped in place on an operation table. He manages to break free as Dr. Webb gets closer to him with a chainsaw. With the strength of the other arm, he hits her and approaches Charlie. As the two break into a fight, Bill tries to get Charlie's gun. However, Charlie is ready to shoot at him, and just as he's ready to pull the trigger, Bill snaps Charlie's head off his body. He proceeds to break the glass case containing the other body parts and fires at every one of them until they all go still. A bewildered Charlie finds the detective's shotgun and aims to shoot at Bill. He misses the shot and ends up killing Dr. Webb instead. Bill acts on impulse and shoots Charlie in the head once and for all. In the finale, Bill sits in the park along with his wife as he writes things in a journal. He writes that the arm hasn't given him any trouble since Charlie died for good. Bill even seems thankful for his arm, and he expresses that he is grateful to Dr. Webb and Charlie for giving him a new arm as the screen turns to black. Why should you watch Body Parts? Exploring the body horror genre, Body Parts offers gruesome killings, murder mysteries, and plenty of gore. The stunt work is quite impressive as well, and the action sequences are well executed, making up a big portion of the movie. With a runtime of only 88 minutes, the movie is packed with graphic scenes full of carnage and blood that is not for the weak-hearted. The actors do a wonderful job as well, along with the terrifying special effects and a powerful soundtrack that keeps the viewers engaged until the very end. If you enjoy horror with a dash of gore, then Body Parts is the perfect horror flick for your next movie night. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to send a like and subscribe to our channel, if you haven't already, that is. For Marvelous Videos, I'm Rylan. Have a good one, be safe, and thanks for watching.